This happened to me when I was about 12 or 13, I'd say, and I'd somewhat forgotten about it until recently. So one day I was walking home from school when I noticed that I had a voicemail on my phone. This was strange because I would never get voicemails, but I thought that perhaps it was just someone who had left a blank message after staying on the call for too long or something. I put my headphones in as I plodded along and listened to the voicemail, and it was blank. But it went on for quite some time, like someone had wanted to say something but just ended up hanging up. So that's just what I thought, an accident. Later that night, as I was enchanted by my phone, I got another voicemail though. I thought that this was strange as I never got a call in the first place, so I listened once again, and once again it was blank. However, you could tell someone was there holding the phone up to their face. This seemed to go on for weeks too, and it seemed to get worse day by day. I would come out of school and end up having like 6 voicemails. I would listen to the first 5 seconds and delete them if they hadn't said anything by then, and at this point I started to get a little bit paranoid. My childlike brain conjuring up the worst thought. One of my friends may have been playing a prank on me and I thought it was getting annoying. I asked around and everyone denied it. But I was certain that I would catch them. Until a week later, that is. I can't exactly remember what this voicemail was about, but I do remember it sounded like a grown man who was extremely angry. He would call me all sorts of names, and I was stupid because I didn't tell anyone. I was embarrassed, and I began questioning myself had I done something wrong. But day after day, I would get threats, to the point where I no longer wanted to go to school. I didn't even want to leave my house. The last voicemail was once again this man yelling too, heavily breathing, and then he said something that made my head spin. "I'm coming to get you." I remember sitting with my back against my bedroom door as if someone was about to kick it down right there and then. I ran into my parents' room and told them that I needed a new number because I was getting weird voicemails. I told them that I deleted them all and that it was bothering me, but obviously they had the wrong number. And so I got a new number and no more voicemails. A couple of days and nothing, and I decided that I wanted to go and see my friends at our hangout. We were all a bunch of goth kids, and this was the one spot where everyone would be. Even then, I tended to stick out though, because I was already wearing heavy makeup and had teased hair, and you could probably spot me from a mile off if I'm being honest. So I get on the train when a man starts to walk the full distance down just to come up to me. He says hi and then said that he liked my style. I felt like I knew him from somewhere because something just felt similar about him, but I just couldn't place it where it was from. And that was when the question started. "How old are you?" "I'm 29. "Oh, you're 13, right?" I hadn't answered, but I thought that he was just quirky and guessing, so I said yes. He said, "Where do you go to school?" "Oh, you go here, right?" Well, once again, I hadn't even answered, and I felt odd. I just lied, though, when I told him that I used to go there, but I'd be going to a different school now. And then he said, "So, where are you going today? Are you seeing anyone?" And I said that I was meeting a bunch of friends, but didn't answer the where I was going part. I started to look away. I no longer wanted to make eye contact with him. He ducks, like straight up bends over and tilts his head just to make eye contact with me. I look a different direction, and he steps right in front of me, forcing me to look at him again. It wasn't even his body, he just kind of moved his face to wherever my eyes would go. I wasn't even speaking now, and it was just a blur of him asking me questions and then answering them himself. He seemed to know everything about me, even all the stores or areas I had visited in the past month. Adults all around me start to stare, and he seems to panic. And then he says, "There's a party going on at the library, want to come?" Obviously, I decline and he gets off. I later found out too that near this library are the dingiest alleyways and car parks probably in the entire city. But months pass and I hear nothing. A trend goes around about YouTubers Googling their names and seeing what pops up though, and I decided it would be fun to do that myself, so I go ahead and I Google my username that I used online back then, expecting to see nothing. Just a bunch of junk on the web pages. So I go into images and see a few months of old selfies of me, and I click on it, and it leads to a website that I didn't know. The photo doesn't appear to be on the site, and its layout looks incredibly old. All there is my username and then a download link called Map. I didn't want to download it in case there was some sort of tracking virus on it or something, and, well, that's what I first thought of when I first saw it. I panicked, closed everything, and nothing seemed to happen ever again. I also happened to get some homeschooling after this as well, which did help. It was a very bizarre thing that happened to me, and I still don't know really what to make of it. And I still wonder what was on that file to this day. 4 years ago, me and my best friend decided to go to a tiny house in the woods that her grandpa owned and stay for a few days. The place was completely isolated, the road was really far away, and there were barely any houses around. But when we used to take walks during the daytime, the first house that we saw was 30 minutes away, in fact, from the one that we were currently staying in. Her grandparents' house was a one-story only. There was one tiny bathroom, and the kitchen was in the living area and one bedroom. So, but one night I asked her to keep me company while I smoked a cigarette outside on the gazebo. She agreed, and before we went outside, we looked the front door even though the gazebo was right next to the house and we could easily see if someone tried to get inside. We stayed a little longer outside because we got carried away in our conversation when, all of a sudden, we hear something hit the roof of the gazebo loudly. It was so loud that it honestly sounded like a body just fell from the sky and onto the roof. We obviously froze, and none of us would even dare to breathe. We just kind of looked at each other. I know that my best friend in these types of situations goes into full panic mode, screaming and running, so before she even managed to scream, I told her quietly to not make a sound and just grab her phone and go inside the house. We get up and walk away from the gazebo to the front door, and I look to see if there's something up there, but there's nothing. But we get to the front door, and guess what? The door is open, almost halfway open. At this point, my best friend starts jumping around and making sounds and tries to dial her grandpa. But I mean, what the hell is that poor man even going to do? It's a 2-hour drive from where he is. He didn't pick up at first, so I finally managed to convince my best friend to just go inside and look around to see if someone's in the house. As I previously mentioned though, the place is really small, so we managed to search the whole place in like under a minute. And there was nobody in the house. There's also only one window in the house, which is in the bedroom, and it's high up and it was closed. Her grandpa finally called back and we told him what happened, and he said that we probably didn't lock the front door properly, but he didn't mention anything about the loud thump on the roof of the gazebo. To this day, I still have no clue what that was. We didn't sleep the whole night, and all the lights in the house were on because we didn't dare spend a second in the dark after what happened. Also, just to be clear, there are no mountain lions here, and there's maybe some wolves and foxes, but it's extremely rare. And I also have never seen either of them outside with my own 2 eyes, so it's very unlikely that it was them. As for tree branches, there wasn't anything on top of the roof, which is a straight horizontal roof. It's not that high too, so it can easily be checked, and no sound of anything hitting the ground afterwards, so that was weird. Also, it definitely wasn't snow because it was the beginning of September. A few people have said that it might be a person trying to scare us, and this is the thing that terrifies me the most, because around us are nothing but dark woods. And as I've mentioned previously, the place is really isolated. I would like a logical explanation for all of this, but the more I think about it and read, the more terrified I am. When I was a kid, my parents ended up fostering my cousins named J and R, aged 4 and 5, and at the time I believe I was about 10. And they shared a room with me. They brought about a couple of weird experiences. I had the top bunk and they shared the bottom bunk. They were used to getting up super early for their mum's doctor's appointment, so they would wake up around 6 a.m. and play on the bottom bunk. They annoyed me to no end, so I would just pretend to sleep through it. Our closet door was about 2 feet from the foot of the bed, and one morning, it just cracked open all on its own. It must have squeaked or something, because they stopped playing when it happened. After a few seconds, it shut again, then opened, then shut. It did that a few times rather slowly, and then it just slammed shut and there was pounding on the door from the inside. After about 5 seconds, it went all quiet again. I climbed down over the side of the bed to avoid going close to the closet and ushered the girls out of the room, not really knowing what to do because everyone else was asleep and I knew my parents wouldn't believe me if I woke them up over this. Then Jay became upset because her toys were kept in the closet and she was worried about them. I tried to hold her back, but she ran in and threw the closet door open. There was nothing out of the ordinary, and all of our clothes were hanging up, the toy bins were closed, and nothing else. My mum to this day still doesn't believe me. Jay always seemed to be the one the weird stuff surrounded, but they're in another state with their mum now and might be moving back soon, and I really want to see if they remember anything. This story takes place over a number of years. In late January this year is when the event actually occurred, but let me start from where this began. Maybe about 2 years ago, I just randomly started getting dreams about a dude in a straitjacket running into my basement room and screaming at me. This dream would occur once every few months and made me really unnerved, as you can probably imagine. I have a pet dog, and one night both him and I heard thumping coming from the stairs and close to my room. My dog started growling and eventually started to bark, but there was nothing there. A few more months pass and I have the dreams more often, and eventually it happens. It was a late Sunday afternoon in January of this year. I was playing Bulletstorm on the PS4 in my basement while my dog is sleeping with me, when out of nowhere I hear the footsteps again in rapid succession down my stairs. My dad was home at the time, so I called out to him, but the steps continued, right into my room, and then into my left ear I hear this huge scream. My dog immediately freaked out and ran upstairs, and I asked my dad if he had heard the noise, but he said no. I really don't know what's going on in this house, but it's pretty freaky, so any suggestions are very much appreciated. When I was in middle school, there was this one stairwell A, in the 6th grade hallway that was usually pretty empty. I would only see a few kids take that way up, and our school had 4 stairwells, 2 in the 6th grade hallway and the other 2 in the 7th and the 8th grade hallway. Even when class got out, though, it seemed everyone would just avoid stairwell A. I've only taken it 3 times while I was at that school, and as soon as you open the big double doors, there was this really large vent that always had dust caked all over its large grate. I figured that the janitors just never paid it any mind. Strangely enough, though, stairwell A was pretty much clean unlike the rest. The other stairwells were always littered with food, wrappers, and gum, and you name it. The vent was big enough to crawl into, so students crawled into it from time to time into the crawl space. There was a rumor going around too that a young boy ran into some bullies on the last day of school sometime in the 70s. Apparently, they took him and forced him into the crawl space and locked him in there and just left him there crying for someone to help. All the teachers had left and there were no cameras, so allegedly he died and rotted there, potentially becoming rat food. Obviously, I didn't believe any of that, but I did always get a eerie cold feeling when I took that stairwell, even before I heard that rumor. Now, the last time I took stairwell A was when I was making my way to my 3rd period English class. I was on the first set of the stairs, almost to the middle of the stairwell, before you would take a turn to the next set of stairs. I dropped one of my pens that was tucked into one of my binder pockets. I bent down to pick it up. Mind you, I was completely alone. And then suddenly I heard one super loud shake like a metal grate was being tried violently or something. It came from the direction of the crawl space, and I jumped so hard that I almost ran from it straight away. But instead, I looked at the crawl space quickly to see if someone was playing a joke on me, but when I did, nobody was there. I got onto the stairs, and once I got to the 3rd step, the shaking happened again, but louder, and I thoroughly freaked the hell out at this point and ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I don't know what it was. I don't believe in the rumor, but I knew then why kids avoided this stairwell A, and from then on, I did too. Once, I was walking home with a friend on one of the trails around our town. We were almost to the end of the trail, and I could see the road and the sidewalk ahead lit up by the streetlight. It was around 11 p.m. or so, and we were just chatting about some stupid things that had happened at school that Friday morning. I was looking ahead the whole time, and I saw movement straight ahead of us. I paused and stopped walking. I thought maybe it was a deer, but it seemed much larger. My friend looked at me estranged and asked what was wrong. I told her that I thought I saw something, and she told me to stop freaking her out, so we just kind of laughed it off and continued. About 10 seconds later, though, we were almost to the sidewalk, and clear as day, out of the trees and the bushes, came this really, really tall dark silhouette of what looked like a man with deer antlers on his head. My eyes were watery, and I could feel the heat of my body spread in an instant. My adrenaline was pumping, and I just stood there and just kind of watched as it just silently glided across the trail into the patch of woods on the other side. I just remember saying, "What?" and looking at my friend. The figure had no legs. It was just a straight rectangular body and a head with what looked like antlers of some sort. My guess is that it was at least 8 feet tall from where we were. My friend just looked at me with the most disturbing look on her face. And at this point, we decided to ball up and just run for the sidewalk, and then straight home. G'day mates, it's Busta here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you would like to help me out, then please go ahead and watch another video by clicking on a card on the screen. As always guys, thanks for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.